Protect your DNA. BioPQQ can promote formation of new mitochondria. Infowarsstore.com.
Well, earlier today, we learned from prosecutors that the shooting death of Lavoy Finicum was ruled justified. They say that the state law allows for the use of deadly force when officers believe that someone is going to be an imminent threat to themselves or someone else. Well, now we have some cell phone video from inside of the vehicle that has surfaced just a mere hours after this decision was made public. And of course, now they're saying the FBI agents are under investigation. We're going to be playing that video coming up later in the show. We'll get David Knight's and Joe Biggs' response. It is shocking footage. It might have some dire implications for that decision and those FBI agents. So stick around for that. Now, we know that there are 4 states today who are working on their primaries. Who will they choose to be their candidate? And of course, in most of those states, Trump has the lead, but it's a very small lead. And of course, this is following this concerted effort by the establishment to take out Trump. Now, we also are learning that there are technology leaders, including Apple CEO Tim Cook and other government insiders, who met over the weekend at the American Enterprise Institute's annual World Forum, which is held at Sea Island in Georgia. They met there to plot the downfall of the Republican presidential candidate. So in addition to Cook, there was also Google founder Larry Page, Tesla and SpaceX chief Elon Musk. The Napster creator was there, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, House Speaker Paul Ryan, a number of other Republican senators. So all of these people were meeting to figure out how to take out Donald Trump. Now, why are they doing this? Now, they've got so many other opportunities that they're saying that they're going to be using. They say the neocons and Republicans opposed to them could be forming a third party. Republican leaders have discussed the possibility of changing RNC rules to unbind delegates at the convention before the first round of balloting in order to undermine Trump. Others have mulled the idea of launching a negative ad campaign against Trump, which we know that they've already spent $150 million, the Republican establishment, to take out the top Republican contender. Why are they doing this? This is absolutely insane, and it should show you who the establishment is actually against. They're not using that money to take out Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders, taking out one of their own. And we've seen the gist of these negative ads with now everywhere, Trump is Hitler. And so this is what we're seeing. There's this picture going around where you see everyone raising their hands at one of these Trump rallies. And Donald Trump was asking everyone to raise their hands if they pledge that they're going to vote for Donald Trump coming up in the election. Of course, they all raise their hands. And so now it's all of a sudden that they're imitating the Heil Hitler type salutes. And actually, Ted Cruz came out earlier today and said, well, it's just crazy that people would pledge allegiance to a candidate. You're supposed to pledge to the flag or pledge to your country. Meanwhile, it's the GOP establishment that made everyone on the stage take the pledge that they would support the candidate, whoever was chosen, and they wouldn't run a third party. So they actually had to sign a pledge. So that doesn't make a whole lot of sense there. But the fact is, it's the GOP establishment that's being very fascist-like in trying to put the boot down on anyone who would dare challenge the authority of the state. And now we have Fox News' Brett Baier coming out saying some Republicans are saying that they're going to back Hillary Clinton over Donald Trump. They don't want him to take over the party. So that just lets you know how against this whole thing they are. And I've already said they're definitely going to do something pretty big to stop Trump. And we know that there is going to be a revolt if they steal the election there and use their delegates to take away the votes of the American people. I think a lot of people are going to see right through that and be very upset. So either A, that's why they're getting all of that riot gear for the convention that's coming up, or something else really catastrophic is in the works. And this is what Michael Snyder is actually proposing there over at his blog. He's saying, you know, late in his second term, Obama is really starting to become extremely aggressive with the rest of the world. Is Barack Obama trying to start a war? And will that be used as an excuse to stay in office once his term is over? Now, I know we've talked about this a lot before with other presidents, and Larry Nichols actually said the Clintons know that whichever president is in office when a war starts, they'll get to stay. So honestly, I think Obama is ready to get the heck out of there. He wants to go work for SportsCenter or ESPN. But just take a look at just some of the things that have been going on in just the last few months. He's angered China by sailing an aircraft carrier task force past these disputed islands in the South China Sea. He's provoking North Korea by simulating an invasion of that nation during a military exercise that's going to involve more than 300,000 troops. He's backing Saudi Arabia and Turkey as they're making moves that could very well start World War III in the Middle East. And of course, if that did happen, it would give Obama the excuse that he needs to exercise his emergency powers, which could potentially suspend the election that's scheduled for November. Now, I wouldn't put it past the powers that be to pull something crazy like this, but at the very least, if the Democratic candidate ends up being someone like Bernie Sanders, they have to be able to justify the need for the military-industrial complex, as well as they are going to have to be able to subdue the masses who are really upset about the fact that they're seeing behind the curtain and seeing how the presidential candidates are really chosen, because it's not your vote that matters if you vote for someone that the establishment does not want. So here in these last days, Obama's big foreign policy accomplishment is being put to the test again. Iran has conducted new missile tests, of course, defying these U.S. sanctions. So they conducted multiple ballistic missile tests Tuesday, and they said it was a display of deterrent power. And the state media there announced that short, medium, and long-range precision-guided missiles were fired from several sites to show the country's all-out readiness to confront threats against its territorial integrity. So the U.S. hit Iran with fresh sanctions on its missile program in January, just 24 hours after they lifted some different sanctions that were related to Tehran's nuclear activities under this landmark deal with the world powers. But this deal sounds really familiar. What about a flashback to Clinton's nuclear deal with North Korea?
North Korea will freeze and then dismantle its nuclear program. South Korea and our other allies will be better protected. The entire world will be safer as we slow the spread of nuclear weapons. South Korea, with support from Japan and other nations, will bear most of the cost of providing North Korea with fuel to make up for the nuclear energy it is losing. And they will pay for an alternative power system for North Korea that will allow them to produce electricity while making it much harder for them to produce nuclear weapons. The United States and international inspectors will carefully monitor North Korea to make sure it keeps its commitments. Only as it does so will North Korea fully join the community of nations.
Seems like the new deal is very much like the old deal. Why are we negotiating with these rogue nations? Now Iran, just like North Korea, is threatening to walk away from the nuke deal after their new missile test. The Iranian leaders say that they are poised to walk away from the deal if the United States and other global powers fail to advance the Islamic Republic's national interests. They say if our interests aren't met under this nuclear deal, what's the point? There'll be no reason for us to continue. So here we go. This is why you don't negotiate with rogue nations.
Tensions between North Korea and the Western world are escalating once again. This time, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea threatened a preemptive and offensive nuclear strike. This statement was made in response to joint U.S.-South Korea exercises. Operations Key Resolve and Full Eagle have begun, and they will continue until April 30th. The state-run North Korean Central News Agency published a statement that says, as the joint military exercises to be staged by the enemies are regarded as the most undisguised nuclear war drills aimed to infringe upon the sovereignty of the DPRK, its military counteraction will be more preemptive and offensive nuclear strikes. Meanwhile, the White House says they are closely monitoring the situation. We urge North Korea to refrain from proactive actions and statements that aggravate tensions and instead focus on fulfilling its international obligations and commitments, said a senior administration official. Saber rattling is not uncommon for North Korea, especially around this time for annual military exercises. CNN's international correspondent Paula Hancock says they have threatened this before, and these kinds of threats are to be expected this time of year.
Well, Amra, I think this has certainly been expected because this is going to be the first day of those joint military drills between the US and South Korea. Every single year, these irritate Pyongyang. They see them as a dress rehearsal to an invasion, which is why every year we see the rhetoric increasing. Of course, this year it's more tense than usual because of the backdrop. Of course, we have the UN sanctions that were just passed last week.
And as of now, the situation has been escalating at an alarming rate. In January 2016, North Korea claimed to have successfully tested a hydrogen bomb.
주체 폐고 2016년 1월 6일 10시 주체 조선의 첫 수소탄 시험이 성공적으로 진행되었다.
In February, North Korea claims to have successfully launched an Earth satellite into orbit using a long-range missile. Earlier this month, the UN Security Council voted to impose sanctions on North Korea. Soon after, a North Korean ship was impounded in the Philippines as part of these new UN sanctions. Kim Jong-un responded by saying that he needs to be ready for nuclear conflict. Nuclear warheads need to be ready for use at any time. And that's a direct quote from Kim Jong-un. U.S. officials say they are considering these threats true because they cannot risk underestimating them. Now you can say that again. We will keep a close eye on this as the story continues to unfold. Stay tuned for updates at Infowars.com.
So what happens when you flood your country with refugees who you can't vet, and potentially some of them have fought alongside jihadi groups in Syria? And of course, you tell them that they do not need to assimilate. You paint them as the victims so they can, of course, play on the soft feelings of young, impressionable teenagers and women and social justice warriors everywhere. Well, you have this next story. A Danish 16-year-old girl has been arrested for possessing explosives in the tiny Danish town of Kundby. She was planning to blow up 2 schools, according to prosecutors. So the girl, she was 15 when she was arrested. She was a recent convert to Islam, and a 24-year-old man who had fought with jihadi groups in Syria was also arrested in connection with this case. Now, the pair were going to use acetone peroxide, which is a highly volatile chemical, which was used in the Paris terror attacks. So, of course, you know, she was showing support for Islamic groups on her Facebook page, other terrorist groups. So I'm sure this really nice 24-year-old gentleman was playing on the insecurities of a 15-year-old girl, and she converts to Islam, and then she's going to go blow up some schools. Very, very interesting. And now Jakari Jackson with an update on some other terror activities going on around the world.
I have some news of very unfortunate terror attacks that have plagued the world just over the past week. An American tourist was stabbed to death in one of 3 bloody terror attacks that rocked Israel Tuesday. Palestinian attackers shot and stabbed a dozen policemen and civilians in separate assaults around Israel, continuing near-daily incidents that began in October and have left more than 200 Israelis and Palestinians dead. But it's not just there. We also see reports out of Syria. As many as 8 rockets fired from Syrian territory controlled by the Islamic State terror group landed in Turkey on Tuesday, killing 2 people, including a 4-year-old boy, officials said. Which makes me wonder, you throw back to the video of the airdrop grenades and rockets to ISIS, are some of those same armaments being used against the people in Syria now? The mayor of the border city of Kilis said Turkish artillery retaliated by firing at ISIS targets in Syria. At least one of the rockets fired from Syria hit a neighborhood in Kilis, killing a woman and injuring 2 boys riding inside of a car. But not all the attacks are perpetrated by the terrorists. Sometimes the terrorists themselves get struck. We have a report out of the Pentagon. The Pentagon says a U.S. strike on Saturday struck a training camp for fighters in Somalia who were preparing to launch a large-scale attack. CBS News correspondent David Martin reports that the Pentagon says the fighters were in the final stages of planning an attack against the African Union mission in Somalia, which includes U.S. personnel. So we'll keep you up to date with the latest. Back to you, Leanne.
Now be sure and join us tomorrow night. We're going to give you the hotly anticipated Infowars Democratic debate coverage. It's going to be myself, Joe Biggs, Rob Dew, and the whole crew. We're going to be going live at 7 p.m. Central. We're going to be taking your phone calls before, during, and after the debate. So be sure to join us. Tuning in at 7 p.m. Central, we will be going live. Now, coming up later in the show, Joe Biggs is going to air a report that he did kind of following that last Democratic debate where we learned that white people don't know what it means to be poor. So he went out and found some of these very privileged white folks and figured out if they could actually go and check their privilege. But first, Alex Jones is going to break down some of the dark secrets of these social engineers and the realities behind the death cult of abortion supporters. And then, of course, John Bowen with his secret societies. You know what? They're no longer that secret.
Fellow Info Warriors, I am very excited to be able to announce to you the introduction at InfoWarsLife.com of a new way to save time and money when you stock up on InfoWars Life formulations like Survival Shield X2 and Super Male Vitality. Just go to InfoWarsLife.com today, select your favorite product, click on Auto Ship before adding to cart, and choose how often you want us to send you another order. Every time you choose Auto Ship at InfoWarsLife.com, you get 10% off and you won't have to worry about running out and having to reorder next time. And of course, you can cancel with one click anytime. As you know, I'm all about the idea of a 360 win, and the new auto ship feature at InfoWarsLife.com is a sure win for everybody. A win for liberty, a win for health, and a win when it comes to big savings. Visit InfoWarsLife.com today and save 10% on your next InfoWars Life order by selecting auto ship at checkout. That's InfoWarsLife.com or call 888-253-3139.